For nearly 5 decades, Chuck E. Cheese was where American childhood happened. Birthday parties, ticket blasters, a giant animatronic rat band playing on a stage lit up like a Vegas lounge act. However, the company behind that mouse has filed for bankruptcy twice, changed owners multiple times, and in the last few years, quietly removed the very animatronics that made it famous from almost every location in the country. So how did a pizza parlor invented by the founder of Atari end up here? Nolan Bushnell had just walked away from Atari, the video game company he built around Pong. He wanted his next project to combine pizza, arcade games, and live animatronic entertainment under one roof. His original idea for a mascot was a coyote. He ordered a costume to match. What arrived instead was a rat suit. His marketing team ran with it, and Chuck E. Cheese's Pizza Time Theater opened in San Jose, California, in May 1977. The concept worked immediately. Bushnell had Atari money behind him, and the chain expanded fast, signing franchise deals across the South and Midwest. But one of those franchise deals fell apart, and the hotel executive behind it, Bob Brock, launched his own rival chain instead. In March 1980, in Kansas City, Missouri, Brock opened ShowBiz Pizza Place, built around a competing animatronic band fronted by a mascot named Billy Bob, an overall-clad hillbilly bear. The two companies sued each other over the animatronic technology and eventually settled, with ShowBiz agreeing to pay Pizza Time a share of profits for the next 14 years, an arrangement worth an estimated $50 million. Despite the settlement, the two chains kept competing head-to-head for the same families and the same city blocks. Therefore, Bushnell had a company winning in court but bleeding in the marketplace. Instead of staying focused on running it, he poured money and attention into side projects. He bought a small arcade game startup and turned it into Sente Technologies, hoping to re-enter the video game business once his Atari non-compete agreement expired. He also founded Androbot, a home robotics company that debuted a small remote-controlled robot called Topo at the 1983 Consumer Electronics Show. Neither venture solved Pizza Time's underlying problem. The chain kept expanding into new locations even as the core business weakened underneath him. By early 1984, the company was losing close to $20 million a month. Bushnell resigned as chairman and CEO on February 1st. Less than 2 months later, Pizza Time Theater filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. The man who invented the concept was gone from his own company within 7 years. But this wasn't the end. It was the merger that saved it. ShowBiz Pizza Place, the rival Bushnell, had spent years fighting in court, absorbed Pizza Time's assets during the bankruptcy proceedings. The combined company immediately began cutting the bleeding, closing about 100 of its 362 restaurants, and renegotiating its debt down from $110 million to $30 million. Between 1988 and 1994, the survivors quietly rebranded nearly every store as Chuck E. Cheese's, retiring Billy Bob and the ShowBiz name from the storefronts entirely. The corporate parent didn't take on that name itself until 1998, when it renamed to SEC Entertainment as part of a move to the New York Stock Exchange. Through the 1990s and 2000s, Chuck E. Cheese became a genuine fixture of American childhood. In February 2014, private equity firm Apollo Global Management took the company private in a deal worth $1.3 billion, loading it with debt. That debt was manageable when birthday parties kept flowing through the door every weekend. It became a serious problem the moment those parties stopped. In the first quarter of 2020, as the pandemic shut the world down, Chuck E. Cheese's same-store sales fell 21.9% during what is normally its busiest stretch of the year. In court filings, the company's own attorney stated SEC was carrying about $1 billion in debt and had lost roughly 90% of its business. SEC Entertainment filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy on June 25, 2020, the second time in company history. The company emerged that December with roughly $705 million in debt wiped out, and ownership passed to a group of creditors led by Monarch Alternative Capital. Dave McKillips, a former Six Flags executive who had joined the company just months before the pandemic hit, was now tasked with figuring out how a chain built around 1970s arcade nostalgia could survive in a world where every kid already had a tablet in their hands. By April 2021, The company had raised $650 million in bonds to fund a total overhaul of its stores. If you're finding this breakdown of how a childhood brand survives 2 bankruptcies interesting, hit subscribe. I cover corporate history like this every week. Now let's get into how they actually pulled off the comeback. That overhaul meant confronting the hardest question in the company's history: what to do about the animatronics. SEC had piloted an animatronic free stage concept as early as 2015, and by 2017 turned it into an official company-wide initiative. The animatronics were expensive to maintain, and the audience itself had changed. Kids raised on smartphones weren't captivated by a robotic mouse playing guitar the way their parents had been. The timing overlapped with the horror film Five Nights at Freddy's, which drew loosely on the legacy of haunted-looking restaurant animatronics and became a box office hit in October 2023. McKillops has said the decision to phase out the band predated the movie, though he acknowledged the film affected public perception of the brand right as the changes were rolling out. By the end of 2024, the animatronic stage shows that had defined Chuck E. Cheese for nearly 50 years were gone from almost every location, replaced with trampolines, floor-to-ceiling video screens, and digital dance floors. The original plan called for keeping the band in a single store. Public backlash changed that. The company ultimately preserved animatronic shows at 6 locations across the United States and Canada, including its original home base in Northridge, California. In their place came a genuinely different business. The company reworked its pizza recipe, scrapped physical paper tickets for a mobile app, and launched discounted pass programs. In 2023, the company sold 79,000 of its discounted passes. In the same window during 2024, that number jumped to close to 400,000. Company-wide, SEC Entertainment, which also owns Peter Piper Pizza and the delivery-only brand Pasquale's Pizza and Wings, poured more than $300 million into renovating its restaurants. Annual revenue climbed from $912 million in 2019 to about $1.2 billion in 2023, even with fewer total locations open than before the pandemic. The company also launched a 12-month membership tier that sold more than 100,000 subscriptions within months and struck more than 30 licensing deals covering everything from frozen supermarket pizza to apparel, betting the character himself could generate revenue far beyond the 4 walls of any restaurant. So what actually happened to Chuck E. Cheese? The honest answer is that it never really disappeared. It changed hands from Bushnell to ShowBiz, from ShowBiz to public shareholders, from Apollo to a room full of creditors. It changed its entire business model twice, and shed almost every piece of the original 1977 concept except the name and the mouse. The animatronics that older millennials remember as the heart of the brand turned out to be the most expendable part of it. What survived was the underlying idea Bushnell had before Atari even made him rich: pizza, games, and a reason for kids to want to be there. Whether you remember the animatronic stage or you've only ever known the trampolines and screens, the mouse is still standing nearly 50 years later. That's more than most of the brands from your childhood can say.